Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me. This is our first episode that's going to be part of this special project that Brand Equity has launched. It's called Be the Change, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have the three of you joining me today to talk about what it means to be a woman in Adland. And I just want us to have an absolutely sort of casual, unfiltered conversation on everything it means to be a woman in the advertising business. And I want you guys to just kick off with perhaps just sharing stories from where you all started. You know, stories of anything you'll face perhaps in the start of your career, casual sexism in office, discriminatory policies. It could be anything. I just want to just begin with that one instance that has stuck in your head. And for some reason, you haven't been able to shake it off.
So my first job in advertising was 20 years ago. We won't go into where it was. But 20 years ago. And, I have to say that compared to a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my peers, I've had a relatively great stint in advertising, largely because of the last 10 years out of the 20 years, I was building my own company, right? I was part of Glitch, and I took everything that happened in the first 10 years into building an organization along with the co-founders, a company that I'm proud of, a company that I want to work at, right? So we'll get into that part later. But a piece that stuck with me, and that happened very early on in my career, is ageism. And because I started working very, very early, so a young girl making a presentation to a group of people, and I was with a few colleagues, and this happened a few times over my career as well. So it's strange that it didn't go away even as I got older, which is that they just wouldn't look at you when you talk. And when I was making the presentation or answering a question, they would always look at my male colleague and reply or ask a further question, which was the first time that happened. I very distinctly remember the feeling of feeling so inadequate in that room, because I was so excited as a young person to be making my very first presentation. It was a pitch. So in a really important one, my organization had supported me in putting me out there in the front, and it just did not get received well. And not because the presentation was not good, but just because I was a young girl. And that part bothered me. But I did channel that very, very positively into what I did at Glitch. Because that's how I do think that as women, we have this, especially as women today, right? I'm not going to talk about women because women have had a tough time for many, many decades. But as women today, and especially women like us in leadership positions, I mean, we get to decide the kind of company we want to build and the kind of policies we want to build, and use our voice in our style with grace, in our own personality. We don't have to be a man in a man's world, right? We can, for me, I've spoken about having winged eyeliner and high heels and tight jeans. That's my style, and that's how it's always going to be. And I'm never going to change that. I'm never going to look like a man to sound important. And I think that part is a lesson that I learned very quickly. Even though it bothered me, I channeled it, I think, positively. That was my little story.
Mm-hmm. Wear that red lipstick if you want to.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I wear it so often. I just couldn't get myself to do it today on a Saturday afternoon.
I think that's a different matter.
We're making up for it.
Yeah, you look beautiful, Pallavi.
We're going for it. But nice.
So, I'll go next. And this is obviously 25 odd years in the business. And I'm thinking back to my first big agency job, and all the excitement of being part of this. Like, it was all so friggin' exciting and glamorous, and there were so many it all seemed like, oh my god, this big bad world and mad world of advertising, and it just felt such a privilege to even be in an agency. And then within, I think, the first 2 weeks, and this is, out of college, young, getting ready, going to work, the whole shebang. And then one day, one of my colleagues, not a senior person, and senior account management or whatever they were called, and he called me aside, friend of mine, and he said, are you going to make this like a career, or are you just like, is it just like time pass? So I was like, what? No, I mean, I love it. I love being here, and it's so exciting. And he said, and then he looked at me up and down, and not in a lecherous way, but actually said, you just, this is all wrong. You look like you spend a lot of time before you come to work in the morning. And by that, I mean, like I still wear kajal and lipstick, by the way. I've always worn kajal and lipstick. And if I'm wearing a kurta, then I have a dupatta. Like, it's like, it's like normal, like regular dressing up, which I've done all my life. And he said, you look like you spend a lot of time deciding on what you're going to wear in the morning. And that's not good when you're in a meeting. You must look like you've just, especially for a woman, you just look like, you're committed to the work, and you can't be so much about like, looking good. And in retrospect, I think all these years, and what I hear about younger women and coming in, and I'm hearing you girls talk about red lipstick, it's been always about, to, how do I put it, to justify, talent or passion or intent. Is there a look? And I don't mean a man look. I mean, I shudder that one has to dress like a guy. But even dressing up because you want to dress up and you want to look good, was told to me like eons ago that, it's not a serious look. It looks like, it's frivolous or whatever, that was meant to go somewhere. And of course, I didn't change the way I'm going to dress because of some idiot. But it's been with me throughout. And even now, I am conscious of it. I'm conscious of it. I look out for it. And I keep thinking that, is dressing up the way you would normally dress up. And I love that Pooja is saying like, caucus nook right now. But like so many years ago, it was like, it felt really bad. Like it made me feel really small and like wondering, oh my God, am I going about it all wrong? Because this is where I want to have a career. I love the job, but is my approach to it all wrong? And it was, in retrospect, so irrelevant and so stupid, but it just stuck in my head.
It's
Yeah.
so
So that's,
crazy, right? That's so far between you and I. We've not spoken about talent. We've not spoken about skill. We've spoken about how we looked and how we looked at that particular moment that defined what in people's minds what our potential life would be like.
That's strange to think about, right?
Yeah, that's quite,
About
quite
you.
2 out of 3. My answer to this will be a little different. I think today we're asking about what does it feel like, the then and now of being a woman in Adland. I just, I want to say, if you'd asked me what did I think about gender equality when I was starting out, the truth is I didn't think about it. And I think in that there's your answer right there, right? Because back in the day, see, it worked both ways. Trainees were trainees, at least. But I was starting out, not men or women. Toothbrush sabke office mein rehta tha, right? There was no, it's not about whether you were a guy or a girl. But if memory serves me right again, I didn't ever hear or think or talk ever about one woman in any position of any kind of importance across the agency where I was at, other agencies, directors, third parties, name it, clients, not really. Clients maybe, a stray name here or there. But what is it like to be a woman in Adland then and now? I think the biggest difference is that today at least you hear about women. 17
Yeah.
years ago, at 18 years ago, there was sorry who, and the thing is we were so conditioned that this is the way it is, that you're going to be surrounded by men in suits, that it didn't occur to you that there was something is missing. The fact that there was an absence of women in any shape or form in the higher echelons of management was not even, it wasn't even a conversation. So for me, I'll tell you one incident that actually stuck out for me. And when I first realized that gender was a consideration, if not a stumbling block potentially, was not when I was a kid actually, was not when I was a bacha, but when I was somewhere on the cusp of starting to handle front brands or front clients. That's when, so for me, I think when your hands and legs now, when you're a cog in the wheel, it's all the same. But as soon as you are on that threshold of becoming something a little bit more than that, that's when it can come and bite you. And at least that's when it pinched me. I remember, I'm again obviously not going to name names, but I've been in a client meeting where there's been about 6 or 7 people from my setup. And after this meeting's concluded, I've been introduced as somebody who's going to be point person on creative. So it's not like, it's not like it's been rushed under the carpet and you don't really know who to be talking to, etc. There was a person from another function with me. There were 2 women in the room from the agency side, me and somebody in planning. And I've been introduced as creative point person. This person has been introduced as someone who's senior in the planning team. When this meeting ends, everyone stands up and ceremoniously says, bye-bye, we shall meet again, solemn nods and much ado. And the senior-most man at the other side, on the client side of the table, comes around to our side and doles out visiting cards to the whole agency with all pomp, show, and due diligence. He goes to the planning head, who's a man. He goes to the servicing head, who's a man. He goes to the servicing junior, who's a man. He passes by the planning woman, passes me by, goes to my junior, who's a man, hands him the last visiting card and leaves. So, this has stayed with me. It's wow. So, see, we've seen this happen, and I wonder, it was many years ago, but I think to myself now, should I have just raised a ruckus then and there? I didn't. What I did do was come back and say to myself, screw this, I'm going to go back there. I'm going to keep on talking to him, go on making eye contact and force him to have to talk to me. Because see, that's the deal. If you're dealing with this agency, you're dealing with me. Like it. So you don't want to deal with me? There's the door, right? So gradually as the process, as we carried on, by the end, we started making eye contact, exactly something that Pooja mentioned, right? I mean, sometimes it's like, so, but
this is visible.
Yeah, correct. But this time around, all's well that ended well. He realized that, what do you know? Lady ko bhi visiting card dena, not bad idea.
When this happened again to me a little later in life, which is when I was at Glitch, and Varun and Rohit are the co-founders of Glitch. The 3 of us were in a meeting, and it was 3 of us. I was again making the presentation, and we were the only other men in the room. But I had told Varun and Rohit before we went in, I said, if they don't look at me, you will make sure to tell them that this is the person you need to talk to. Because I am not the only one who's going to fight that battle. You will do it for me as well. So when we went in, and it so happened that, yes, again, they only directed the question at Varun and Rohit. Both of them said, hey, no, you need to talk to Pooja because she's the one who is making the presentation. I do think that men play such an important role in this discussion as well, right? That Pallavi, maybe later on in life, what we need to do throughout is also tell the men who come with us in the meetings that, guys, if something like this happens, you stand up too.
Say something.
In that sense, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think a lot of the men do that proactively. Because it's shocking. I mean, when something goes down, if there's a man with, any kind of backbone, and if someone who understands what's right for the business, he's not going to care whether it's a man or a woman. He's just going to be like, hello, talk to the person who's
exactly.
Right? So, yeah, I think that way I've been lucky. Because
it's so bizarre because I remember being, so bizarre, but I once wore dark glasses in a meeting only for this reason, in a very big client meeting. And I'm remembering it now and wondering, like, what was I thinking? I wouldn't dare to do it now, by the way. And I would be aghast if any woman did it. But I had these really cool blue Ray-Bans, those horrible, I think I borrowed them from my son. And I put it on at a meeting and we were just presenting. There were 4 of us, and they're all maybe men. I presented my stuff and nobody asked me also why I was wearing dark glasses, by the way, until we finished the presentation. And somebody from the client said, do you have conjunctivitis or something? So I was like, no. And they were like, why on earth are you wearing glasses? And I said, I was just making a point because I said, nobody's looking at me in any case. And I remember now, like going back, like seriously, what was I thinking? But it wasn't about gathering people and telling them this is what I need and why are they doing it to me, but just figuring out in my own way that what can I do to just get them to realize that this is really wrong in the way I would do it. And I thought nothing about whipping it out and making a point. And I think I made my point really. And I've totally forgotten about it until right now. This thing about why aren't you looking at me when I'm talking? So you might as well not look at my eyes either. And yeah, I was very brazen, and like I dread to think if I would even do it now, wearing that
That's
to a
pretty cool. I
meeting.
like that.
I don't think so.
Come up with questions, right? Like this was something that we need to talk about also, which is of course the men around you. And I know Pallavi, you made the point about, I mean, doesn't matter man or woman. So we're going to say people around you. All right. If you are a woman in a situation who perhaps, you guys are, at the very top of your companies and your businesses. So that's a different matter now. But if there's a woman and she cannot perhaps stand up for herself, so what are the people, what do you expect of the people around you? What do you do? Men, women, people in positions of power, like stand up and say something, right?
I think the more examples we create of people looking out for each other, I think something like this always, and I speak from my own experience, especially at Glitch. As we were building the company, there was a certain way of working, a certain culture that we built, right? So that, I mean, our cultures, we have each other's back. So be it, within a meeting internally, or with a client, or with a partner, with the studio guys, or with production, and whatever that list goes on, right? Our cultures that we will have each other's back. So in our company today, I mean, there is no way that we could be in a client meeting, and if there was something that was, derogatory or insulting, or put any person, not just a woman, any person in a position of ridicule or embarrassment, people would stand up, because people in the company are fearless. They know that they're not going to be pulled up for standing up for something that was right. And people's the respect is far more important than money, because when you have respect, money follows. When you have respect, you're fearless. You operate with a certain kind of energy, with a certain kind of confidence, and then everything else follows. And I think it hence starts really from the people who run organizations. Now, what is the culture of your company? Does your culture allow you to encourage people to have each other's back, or is it one looking out for oneself? So I think that part, in my experience, has been very important, and something that I've learned along the way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. See, I think even how Pooja put it, it's a person thing and not a man-woman thing. It has to be a culture. It should ideally. I mean, in a utopic world, we'd all be working in places where if someone were to deride us for reasons other than professional, people would stand up. I understand that sometimes these things can't happen. Like, you can't wage war in a boardroom.
Mhm.
But having said that, there's no reason why it should not be taken seriously behind closed doors in your organization, and calls being made, meetings being conducted, whatever it takes being done to address the issue, right? So, like, let the person in charge, man or woman, doesn't matter, take it up with the highest authority at the other end, right? That this kind of behavior will not be tolerated. I'm not saying it needs to be done with jhanda gadoing and starting to shout or scream, but it needs to be addressed. It should be, ideally, that should be how people function. Because absolutely right, I totally echo that. If you work from a place of fear, you'll find yourself always afraid, right?
Yeah, but I think not disagree, but I just think, then within women and women in the industry, we have a voice, we are powerful, we belong to organizations which well, support us, stand by us, and it's all sounding like it's great, and it's great for us, and it's great that we belong there. But I think if you look at the industry across design, across independent agencies, across smaller startups, and great if there's a culture, but it's unfortunately, and that's the truth, and that's what's buried under the table, is there's a very different culture, and the only person who's petrified is the poor man mostly the woman, because we are talking about women and it is an issue for women. And I think that kind of courage, or the fact that you can say what you want, is really few and far between. We get to hear mostly, and I'm not talking about larger agencies where we work, but when we hear from women, the biggest thing is, but who do I talk to? I mean, you have departments, you have practices, you have posh, you have, I don't know, whatever they're called, all those fancy names, and they have HR. And Pallavi knows, I've been working with Pallavi on a couple. But at the first port of call, it's petrifying. And to know that you have to deal with it, who do I go to? Who do I talk to? The truth is, we need to be far more conscious of it. That a lot of women, even that first thing to get somebody to listen to her, it is really tough, and it's not so easy. It's not, everybody is not blessed, or fortunate enough to work in the right kind of environment. And what what I hope, and whoever's listening to this feels that you need to have that one person who you can go to, and it's not always so hunky dory. I
Yeah,
don't
of
think it is.
course. No,
Have you ever been that person for anyone, Tista?
In my so I hear what Pallavi and Pooja are saying, and for me, it's there's only one rule, and that's pick up your bag and walk out if you feel uncomfortable. If there's somebody who's said the wrong thing, don't even bother. And it's a lot of women, and that's the other thing, and I hope you're going to talk about it. uh, oh, you're getting emotional about it. You know how people react to women being reactive. And my only and constant advice, and I would follow it myself if I was in a meeting and I felt things were getting out of hand, I just say pick up your bag and walk out. And you have absolutely the right to do that, and we will be there. I don't even want you to get into an argument and explain things. And of course there have been instances. There are women who sob. Very recently, somebody said, and that's a huge thing about work from home and harassment on a work from home basis, because you're not physically there. So a lot of people yell. I mean, it's a thing. Zoom harassment is a thing. And there was somebody who said he spoke really badly, and I don't mean physical proximity. We're talking about a time when you're across the table and there is a proximity. There's a guy, is he larger? How are you feeling? He's invading your body space. But this is a weird kind of insidious creeping in on you, because you're talking to somebody who's literally here on a screen, and somebody's just not saying the right things or not saying it in the right way, and that's equally offensive. And if you're on a work call, then what do? Just switch off, or do you continue? So yeah, of course it happens. We Of course we have to discuss it. It has to go back to the client. And I think very often on the other side, if it's a client conversation, it could be a vendor, it could be a filmmaker, there's always somebody who's really heard. I think a lot of the times, we don't even bring it to the table. We kind of discuss it and say, okay, we will deal with it. But the truth is, you need to deal with it together. And I just think by bringing it up, talking to the other party, there's always somebody there who says, yeah, okay, I get where you're coming from. And the truth is, very often the other side didn't even realize they were being offensive. It's a lot of times is how I felt and how I took it. And when it's all out in the open, the other person says, hey, I'm really sorry. It's not even, that wasn't even how I intended it to be. So I think a lot can be solved with, of course, talking it out, but more importantly, putting it on the table. There's too much in our industry of, okay, it won't happen again, and sweep it off. It's fine. Next day,
One
new
time,
routine.
brush
Yeah,
it under
let's
the carpet,
just
you
carry
know,
on. I
move
might
on.
uh,
But
uh,
I just have to move on. Mhm.
yeah, I just feel like, on the contrary, please don't move on. Halt, put everything to a standstill, talk about it, and until the woman or the man is comfortable enough, then carry on. The worst thing is feeling that you know uh, you've been offended or feeling hurt, and then having an organization say, but it won't happen again, just continue, because you're not resolving it. It needs to be resolved, and you need to feel that, okay, somebody did something, and it kind of, I'm feeling okay about it. And I 100% feel the prerogative is on the person who's feeling it, not on the other person. So is the man or a woman okay again to continue? Then let's continue. but let's deal with it. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, so
Pooja, do you agree with that? I mean, what are your thoughts?
from what I hear Tista say, I think the second part of what she said is in line. That I completely think that if you don't put it on the table, which is why I said you don't have to make an issue, like you don't have to make a public issue out of it. But does it have to be addressed? Damn right. And who's going to be able to do that? The people who can, the people who are in power, right? So if somebody has been said something to, which is outside of the realm of work, and if it's not work related, if it's not got to do with, upheavals happen every day on day-to-day jobs. There are tempers fly around, things are messy. But if it is gender related, if it is anything that, like if it's a personal jibe, if it is anything but to do with the work, right, then it is right for people, it has to be, in fact. And I think I buy into what Tista is saying, that maybe everywhere people don't have this kind of avenue to go and air their grievances, etc. But yeah, in the places that do, I mean, it is I would say the leadership should be compelled to raise it and not brush it under the carpet. And people should feel free enough that if I go and talk to my, boss about it, or someone in the agency about it, someone who is in a position to make a difference, I will be heard. So I think the places that are truly happy, the places where people are, at least they don't have this kind of shit to worry about, are places where people know where they will be. There's in our line of work, there's never going to be a utopic situation where everybody's skipping and singing songs. But at least let your when you're feeling fried, when you're harrowed, let it be for the right reasons. Let it be for work and not for anything else. So I think, yeah, definitely talking is important. What I don't know how to even begin solving for all the, the length and breadth of, agencies and different kinds of sizes, cross-functional, like there's so many, like Tista mentioned, there's design and there's media and there's everything else. How do you address something for startups? How do you address something for small-scale agencies? How do you go about addressing this kind of issue? Not just for the bigger places where I suppose we have had the privilege of working, but for the smaller ones. I don't have any answer to that, right?
I think it's by making, I don't know where Delshad and Priyanka are eventually going to take this initiative. But, it's so important that people have to be held accountable, right? Women, if, Tisa, the point that you said, where does she go? Who does she talk to? If there is a place outside your organization, a body that one can speak to, that, and it has to be anonymous or what, but, someone who keeps a tracker of or that, like for example, it's company X and there are so many complaints that are coming from company X, and if there is this external body that keeps this tracker, only then will people be held accountable, because otherwise it's sab ghar ki baat, no? Everyone's like, no, let it not go outside, let it all stay, you be quiet, don't worry, I will take care of this. It'll always be that until and unless people are actually held accountable. So, note to Delshad and Priyanka, then, you have to find a way that how do you hold, even the smaller companies, and I do think that this is very rampant even in larger companies like ours, accountable for how they treat complaints in general.
I have to, and when things do come out, right, and we saw that happening with MeToo, of course, and how do you feel about the aftermath of MeToo? What happened afterwards? Was there enough action? I don't know. How do you feel about it? Because, of course, after a while, things died down. People, I'm not just talking about advertising right now, but a lot of people who were called out during that time are back to going about their business like it never happened. Speaking about advertising and, where we are today, how do you feel about it?
I like how we're all taking a moment, right?
Yeah.
It was a very important conversation to have.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, you go ahead. You go first.
Should I go first? This will take us like a week, I think, to get to the bottom of. So I'm gonna try. I think when MeToo hit advertising, I think all of us, and it didn't matter, and including you, Delshad, we were just filled with this absolutely, inexplicable, like we were furious. Okay, we were like angry. Some of us got together, some of us spoke about it, a lot of us wrote about it, and and I'll tell you the weird thing, and what I have figured out during MeToo is the and I'm the oldest person on this panel. A lot of stuff we went through as when we were starting off was almost like par for course. We didn't even know it was harassment. And I think that's the thing, that was the first big eye opener for a lot of us women. And we started a body called the Collective, where we were like, oh, but did this happen to you? And oh my god, it happened to, I mean, and we just didn't know it was wrong, or we could call it out. We just thought that's the way advertising works. You dealt with it, you spoke to a girlfriend, you cried about it perhaps, you changed agencies when it got really bad. But it happens. And then Me Too, and I'm talking about young vulnerable girls. And what offended me absolutely most, and I think that's what I felt when we were beginning, is men misusing power to it's not just about sexist comments, and it's not about, like, it shouldn't become like, oh, he forwarded me a WhatsApp joke. I mean, like, seriously, you have to have boundaries. And no, you are it's all level playing field somewhere, and you can be there. But if you're going to be using your position of power or a designation to really I'm using the word prey really strongly, but to make young women feel uncomfortable, it is the most baseless and horrendous way of dealing with, like, women. Because they're young, they're just starting off. And very often you don't even know, the truth is, it's flattering. There is your super 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 boss 100 times removed, who's suddenly saying, hey, I like your work, and maybe I can spend some more time with you, and figure out how to make it better. It's a huge high, because who are you just started off. And then you realize somewhere down the line that actually it's not quite kosher, and things are not meant it's not meant to be the way it is. uh, I think, coming back to what can you do and what did you feel, in many agencies we saw that the very people who you had an issue with was the same person sitting on the posh committee. So it's like, I have an issue with you, and hey, I've got to complain to you about yourself. It makes absolutely no sense. There is nothing, I feel, in agencies which say, is there, they do have one person from the outside, but there is no outside body that's saying, talk to me, I'm neutral. I mean, obviously, within an agency, are you going to talk to the same four people who have lunch together and are best friends with the guy or the woman who you have an issue with? It doesn't work like that. So women spoke, women came out. There's a lot of social media. I mean, and some of it went completely out of whack, in terms of people putting their case across, and things happened. And then the whole thing, and why I think it's worked elsewhere and not here, is the law. I mean, how many of us are going to take, like, a legal recourse and speak to a lawyer and get things done? Because as of now, you have an issue, you talk to your management. 90% of the time, the management are the same guys who you have an issue with to begin with, and they tell you, we'll solve it for you, and it kind of like goes nowhere. Again, larger agencies, network agencies, have it down much better because there is a system in place. But I think independent agencies and, again, startups perhaps, and I don't know what the nomenclature is, and I don't care, where it's really two people run or one person run, it is so bloody difficult. Because how? I mean, the easiest thing is to, like, walk away, where the woman is concerned or the guy is concerned. And I just think, as an industry, we spoke about it, and what was bothering me, it became like gossip. It's like, did you know, as opposed to, how can we help? And I think, and that's really sad, because, and there were a lot of us who were tempted to help, but somewhere the conversation was about, but he's my friend, he can't be like that, and I know him, and did you hear? But is there a body of, maybe, I don't know, lawyers, outsiders, who actually tell women, talk to us, like you have a cell maybe in the police department, I don't know. But there is nothing, it doesn't exist in our industry. It's, you have an issue, talk to your agency will talk to their own people, and we will solve it, again, like Pooja was saying, internally. And then what? So there is a problem. Unfortunately, nobody's addressed it. Me Too hasn't gone. I don't think the women are not facing it at all. I just feel they're talking to different people. It's not just out there on social media anymore, but it's very much there. A few of them are raising their voices. But again, coming back to the moot question, who's listening?
What do you think, Pooja, Pallavi? Is anybody listening?
No, I don't think I think I'd be lying if I said everyone's listening and people are there. There is a proper redressal system for this. There There have been things put down on paper. There are committees in place everywhere. And now it has to, I mean, there have to be committees in place everywhere. Are people comfortable walking into, a committee member's room and saying, I would like to take this up? I don't know, because I don't know. Tista is absolutely right. I think it changes from case to case. If the person you're having a problem with is in a serious position of power, then you'd think it's just the way simpler choice to pack your bag and go away. If the person you're having a problem with is the guy sitting at the desk next to you, I think there might have been some kind of a change. Because I do realize this may be at a very, very peripheral, skin deep, right, part of the aftermath, but I've seen a general sense of it's not okay to talk like this. I've seen that. I don't know whether there's an all-pervasive sense of okay, so let's put it like this. I think it's operating even from the way guys look at it, from a place of fear and not from a place of I understand why this happened. I understand why these voices came out. I understand what must have gone down in the heads of the ladies who spoke. I feel, badly for what they went through. Of course, there'll be a section of people who get that. But for the most part, people are like, oh boy, if I crack a joke tomorrow, it could be me. I'll just shut the F out. Right? That's where I think largely people are at. So now people look at each other and say, Aisa mat bol, you might be in trouble. So that part has, I don't know whether that's a desirable or undesirable effect, but it has happened. Like for the people look at each other and say, it's not all right to be, laughing about lewd jokes in the presence of people who you're not, on first name backslapping friendly basis with. If you don't know somebody well enough, please maintain that boundary. But people, I think, are doing it from a place of, I might be the next one called out, named, as opposed to a thing of, I get that this is not the right way to be. I understand why this is happening. So that's at a peripheral level, like I was saying, but at the deeper level, right, where honestly, were the perps taken to task? No, not really. They went under, stayed under until the social media storm blew over. And as we all know, social media storms tend to blow over sooner rather than later. And then life is back to normal. So no, I don't think anybody is listening, but the one unwitting benefit of this might have been that people aren't quite as callous as they used to be anymore, at least at the grassroots level. People, it's not okay to just say whatever the hell you feel, under the garb of being friendly. That kind of thing, I think, has been stemmed for sure. But again, it's coming from a place of, oh boy, let me not get jacked. That's
my perspective is that the change of everything that is probably going to happen by the time my daughter is in a working environment, and she's just 3 right now, is that this was step 1, and I think it is a good step 1, because there was no step before this, right? So there's conversation, which is a great thing. What Pallavi said is absolutely right. The conversation is broken up into, hey, there is now fear, especially, and if you break it down a little bit, is that there is a certain generation of men who are scared. Like, hey, my God, I'm not going to say it. The younger guys, the younger people, especially who are still in colleges right now, still, impossibly in school, or, are looking at it as, hey, this is not okay to do. And I'm sort of seeing that difference as we're doing some research with a lot of young people. I do think that the next generation of people who come into the workplace will may not look at it as a point of fear, and I'm hoping that is the case, that they don't look at it from a point of fear, but look at it from the point of, hey, this is not okay. Because this right now, what we're going through is phase 1. Conversations have started. What did it result into? There was noise, and I think that is what happened. Did the perpetrators get the raw end? Did anything happen to them? That I feel that the more we discuss that, the more angry we will get, right? So let's not even get into that right now. It's about the fact that there's a conversation. The conversation has now become a normal conversation to have. Initially, if women would say, hey, this is not okay, they would be like, hey, you have a problem, yeah, you're not cool enough to be in this group. But now when you say, hey, it's not okay to say that, there will be fear or there will be understanding. But it's not ridiculed anymore, right? There is fear or understanding. hopefully over time there will be a larger group of people who get the understanding and the fear sort of goes down. And I do think that the more we speak about it, the more we normalize it, hopefully the next generation of people will see a difference. But it's step one only. That's where we're at. It's a good step one. Better late than never.
That's true. That's true. One thing that we need to talk about also, and I know we don't have too much time, but I really want to talk about this, which is pay scales, imbalances in pay scales. And again, Pooja, you spoke about power and money. And that's important. That's very important. Personal experience, have you guys ever felt that you were perhaps paid less than your male counterparts simply because the only difference between the two of you was your gender, is your gender? I mean, has there been any time in your career where that has happened at all?
No, I don't. The thing is that me specifically, I've never known of if I've been paid lesser or not. And more these conversations over the last 5-6 years have got such momentum that by that time I was already doing glitch, right? And we were already building a place which was gender blind. But initially, I didn't know if that was happening. So I'm going to let the two of them answer if they experienced it at all.
I have not, but I have not gone looking.
Yeah, exactly, right? Not gone looking in a sense. They've never known or gone looking. Maybe it was happening, who knows?
This is basically, it's information that you can't, you can't have a reasonable conversation around this, on an absolute scale, unless you have data in front of you. I don't have that data. But this is an interesting conversation because this is something that I'm part of the Women's Council at Dentsu, and we were having the same conversation not 2 weeks ago. And a very, very interesting point that a very senior lady in the organization made. She's had many hirings under her belt, decades of being in the business. So she raised a beautiful point, actually. She said it's not so much about how much you are getting today vis-a-vis what the guy is getting. She said, over a period of time, I have noticed that it's kosher for men to ask for more, and they do. The way women bargain and the way men bargain for salaries is a very, very different thing. And this I will have to agree, because I know I have been a total laddu when it comes to talking about money for myself. So I really don't know what youngsters do. When I was a child, I was god awful. I have improved not a notch as I've moved up. So I think that was a point beautifully made, because I think it's just such a reality, that women don't bargain as hard as men do. We don't play hardball. And again, this is not something that has been developed in one day. It is, I would say, far deeper. It's societal conditioning. It's not just about advertising or about medicine or about architecture. It is how, when a man goes in for an interview, the tacit understanding is that ghar mujhe chalana hai. That it may not have to be said, but it is there. Right? So when he plays hardball, when he asks for more money, everyone's like, it's just sort of, we don't even spend too much time thinking about it. It is built in, right? So you don't have to. And when at the same time, if a woman asks or gets, or stands her ground, digs her heels in and says this much or no, right? Suddenly everyone's like, what just happened? So I don't think it's so much about inequality when it comes to youngsters starting out, or I wouldn't know unless you have the data in front of you how it plays out. But if it has been observed by women who've been doing hirings and watching negotiations for years, then I think that's a fair sample size. Women just don't ask for as much. And as a result, well, if you don't ask, you don't get it, right? That much is pretty clear.
I like that. You're absolutely right. It is conditioning. That's how we brought up.
Tista?
For me, so weirdly, I've never had I've never known how much the guys get and how much I have got. I mean, with Pallavi and Pooja, it's never really come up, honestly, about, and maybe that's another conditioning thing. I've never asked, I'm assuming stupidly or naively that we all get paid for what we're worth, and it's genuinely never come up. Now that I do salaries for people, of course, I'm conscious of what they're getting. But if you ask me right now, as compared to why in my across the industry. I have absolutely no idea, and I hope I'm not at the bottom of the food chain, but I probably am. That's one. On the asking part, oh my God. So I thought it was a Bengali thing, maybe. Like, why don't we ask? And it's so true. We just don't. There is, and I have no idea what it is. This whole cringe of how can I go and ask for more money and what will they think? I don't even know how to begin the conversation. So totally echo what the girls are saying and hope to change it, but I have no clue how, because it's just that whole conditioning thing of, well brought up girls don't discuss money. Maybe I don't know what it is. So maybe we should be not so well brought up and be a little whatever and ask for it, but it's not happening and we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it well.
I actually did this with Glitch when I started, because I didn't found the company. I joined them a few years into it. And I remember that when I came on, I had a high paying job in a company and I wanted to work at Glitch and I lobbied to get that job, by the way. But eventually, I made a deal with them, and that's how I negotiated it. And I tell this to a lot of my girlfriends and people that I work with, is that when you go in for a negotiation, let it be a negotiation. You need to go prepped in. You can't go in, hey, you should pay me more money. You have to go in and say why you should be paid more money. So when I did negotiated my salary with Glitch, I told them in the next 2 months, these are my deliverables. If I meet these deliverables, you will pay me this much. Is it a yes or a no? And if it is a yes, then you move forward. If it's a no, it's not a place for you, right? It's kind of, I feel a negotiation should be managed with certain kind of deliverables on hand.
Yeah.
I think the more women who do that, the more hopefully
there's a tutorial, and I don't know whether it's illegal, I'm not sure, but there's a whole
I was
tutorial
going to
on how,
suggest that Pooja does tutorials.
how to ask for more money, and it tells you how to sit, how to talk, where to make eye contact. And I promise you, I studied it and I was like, oh, it seems quite simple. And there's no way I could do even one of them. And I actually thought, like, is there a way to do it so that it becomes comfortable? You can put it on the table, but it doesn't happen like that. And Pooja, I mean, please, I would like to work on this, like a ready-made
I would be
tutorial for.
very happy to do this with you. I'll tell you why. Because there are
I would love.
steps, okay? And you might laugh at it, but the step
No.
one is that you need to look like you already have a lot of money. Is step one. Even if you don't have it. You have to look so damn fancy when you go in. They should be embarrassed when they give you that letter. It's a joke. I joke about it a lot, but it's really worked for me.
I have given up on it. But it's great to know that everybody has this problem. I thought it was just me. I was just like, okay. I remember, in fact, someone had once asked me, and what are your expectations? I was like,
yeah, nod your head, yes, whatever.
what are my expectations? So, yeah. So
what do you think? Yeah.
Whatever you feel like, that's okay then.
Okay,
but I met this art director once, one of my colleagues, and she had aced it because she told me it was all about getting our letters, and who's getting called in by whoever the CCO is calling you one by one, and you go into the room and that whole drama around it, which I really miss actually. So she went in and like sassed her way in, and before she went in, she said, "I'm going to get so much," and we were like, "There's no way you can know," and she said, "No, I know how to get it," and then she sashayed in and sashayed out saying, I did it. And we all went like garib people, and we thought we'll get 8, we got 2, but we were like, thank you so much, we are so grateful, and came back. And she put this argument on the table, which for my life, I've never been able to follow, because she said, I'm an art director and I need to be exposed to beautiful things, right? So I need to be holidaying. Because how do I get exposed to culture? How do I go to foreign countries? How do I see art? How do I appreciate even dinner at Indigo at that time? Some story. And she said, if I don't have money to become a more evolved person, which will help me in my work, how I'm going to remain where I am. So you need to pay me more so I can travel more, because it's all going to come back to my work. And I have no clue because I was in the room, but she got it, because we all nodded saying like, yeah, that's so true. But I wouldn't dream of saying like, that's a great argument as well, saying how better do you want me to be in my work, and pay me so I can be better because you will benefit. And she's still in the same agency, by the way. I meet her sometimes, and all I can think of is that sashaying walk and saying, I did it, you girls are losers, you don't know.
That's what we have said, man. We're
But
copywriters.
she got it.
Go buy second-hand books on in Colaba. That's what I have been told. You don't need much money for that. I'm a writer. I want to read.
We want to travel. I want to go to Paris. I want to spend the whole day at the museum, and they'd be like, yeah, read about it. I mean, that's fine. Like nobody's ever listened. Yeah. But yeah.
I can't see myself doing that, but I think that's the key here. For pay scales, I think the trick is for everybody to, man or woman, to stand up and fight for what you're worth. And if there's a tutorial for that, yeah, well, I'll be signing up.
And I think it's confidence. The one thing.
By the way, I'm taking a note, Delshad. This is a workshop I'm going to run. Just FYI, of how to get more money.
Absolutely.
You have no idea
exactly
how
what I told you.
sign up.
We want some action to come out of these conversations. We have to do this. You guys have to do this.
I'm actually launching an initiative in the next 1 month. It's coming out. I'm launching an initiative, and as part of this, I'm going to include this workshop.
And I'm totally on board to help any which way I can. I think it's terrific. It's a terrific idea. Way better than anything I've heard recently. Let's do it.
So I'm going to send all of you an email on the initiative I'm launching in the next 1 month, and everyone be a part of it.
Hello.
Absolutely. Done.
Full session.
One more question. It's 20, 40, 50, whatever. A woman has invented the time machine. You get to go back and give your teenage self or your 20-something self a piece of advice. What would you tell her?
I was a very confident 18-year-old. Like at 18, I knew by 30 I was going to be CEO. I told everybody in my friend circle, guys, I'm going to be a CEO by 30. It's going to happen. And everyone was like, who's this weird person? We're not going to hang out with her. But when at 30, when I did become CEO and I created my own path, I believe in that. I put things out into the universe. I created my own path. And when that happened at 30, those same friends called me and said that happened. So my only advice to my young self would be that your confidence was not misplaced. So, you didn't have to ever lose any nights of sleep over it.
Actually, my advice to my current self would be, if I was a little more of my younger self, I think it's just the reverse for me. I think when I started, I was far more, and I don't mean confidence, of course, that's not it, but I was far more, you can do anything you want to. And I think that was it. And slowly the reality and the industry, and I think I overthink things now. I didn't overthink things then. And actually I would be telling my current self to be a little bit like how my younger, just the reverse actually, of how I used to be when I was just starting off, as opposed to the other way around.
That's good enough. Great. I'm so glad.
We all gave you the wrong answer, by the way. All because I know what people usually say, but I'm thinking like, no, that's not true. I don't think I was like, you need to do this and somebody will watch out for you. I was like, no.
I did not want any scripted answers. This was great. I'm glad that you guys were so honest, and I'm so happy that, that something has come out of this. This is what we wanted, right? We wanted dialogues, conversation to lead to some sort of action at an individual level or an organizational level. So I'm so happy this has happened, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Great chatting
us, and have a great weekend, everybody.
And you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.